Welcome to the Alpa Pandya Show podcast. Alpa is the founder of Mind Matrix Coaching, a business and mindset coach. Bob Proctor's top UK consultant, author of the book Your Superpower Mind, and BBC radio presenter. Alpa is on a mission to help you achieve anything you want through the game of minds.
Hello and welcome to the Alpa Pandya Show podcast, Game of Minds. And I'm back. I think I've had about a couple of weeks break, haven't I? I haven't actually recorded a podcast, and that's because I've just been really, really busy. Spending time with family. Of course, we had the Easter break as well. I hope you had a fantastic Easter, and those of you who are still on your Easter break, I'm sure you're having a great time, whatever you're doing. So today I thought, you know what, I'm going to be talking a lot about money and your mind. Okay, and how the two are linked. And I'm going to be sharing some information which I think can change the course of your life. In fact, I know it can. So before I started working with this material, I didn't know how to set goals. I didn't know what kind of goals I should be going for, right? I don't think even I had a proper goal in life. You know, I was just kind of plodding on from day to day, as most people do. Now, no one ever told me that I could take my dreams and literally turn them into reality. You know, I just thought dreams are dreams and that's it. And, you know, we will touch briefly on goal setting later on in the podcast as well. But I want to start by doing a check-in with you. And I want you to think of one word or maybe a short phrase that describes where you are right now. Where are you in your life right now? So, you know, really get into this podcast. That's what I ask of you, because I want you to focus and think about what would be your one word that describes where you are right now in your life with your goals. And for those of you who are thinking, you know what, I don't really have a goal. I don't really know what I want from life. Well, that's a big reason why you really should listen to this podcast, because if you don't have no direction, if you don't have no goal in life, you simply are just pointlessly aiming and shooting nowhere, and you will end up nowhere, as sad as that sounds. So where are you right now in your life with your goals? You know, it's really important to stay connected and focused and have an open mind as well whilst listening to me, because that's what's required if you want to achieve big in life. Because I believe, and I quote myself here, a closed mind is a dying mind. Now, we deal with results that stick at my company, Mind Matrix Coaching. That's what I deal with. That's what I help people with. And you know, you can study a lot of different material, and I've certainly studied a lot of material, but some of it, well, it just doesn't stick. It's good, it's light, but it really doesn't cut it. And what I cover will stick. And that's what has to happen if we are going to change the course of our life. So that's what I'm really talking about here. Now, as I've mentioned before, I work very, very closely with Bob Proctor as one of his top consultants in England. And I'm going to give you a brief background of this legendary thought leader of the personal development industry. If you don't know anything about him, I'm going to speak briefly about him today and tell you a little bit about him and why, you know, I just love what he teaches, because there's nobody out there that can explain paradigms and explain what's going on in your life and why you're getting the results in your life better than him. He's been at this since, well, the last 58 years. So it's Bob and his business partner, Sandy Gallagher, who have created this phenomenal process that I now facilitate and coach to my clients. And it was created in 2009. And Bob, well, he's been at this for 58 years. He began to study this material in Toronto in 1961. And someone led him to Napoleon Hill's book, Think and Grow Rich, which you may have heard about, you may have read yourself. And his whole life changed overnight. Now, it didn't just change from the book, right? But he had someone giving him direction. He had somebody coaching him. And that man's name was Ray Stanford. And if you've seen Bob ever before, if you've been at any of his seminars, he talks a lot about Ray Stanford. And Ray told Bob, if you do exactly what I tell you, you can literally have anything that you want. Now, guys, if I told you that, what would you think? If I said to you right now, you can have literally anything you want, what would you think? Now, for me, I would hope it was true. Well, that's where Bob was. But he didn't believe that it was true. And this is key. I mentioned this in my last podcast as well. You have to believe that something's going to happen for you. But something else happened. He believed that Ray Stanford believed it. He didn't believe it, but he believed that the man that was telling him this believed it. He was struggling at the time. Bob was struggling. He was earning $4,000 back then a year, and he owed $6,000. So the idea of getting out of debt was probably far removed from his mind. But Bob knew that the man that was talking to him believed it. And the man asked Bob if he had ever studied anything or ever read anything. And Bob said no, he couldn't read. Bob also mentioned that wasn't true. He could read, just not very well. And as he points out, most people don't read very well. Do you know we learn to read by the time we are in grade 7, and then we never really improve upon the skill from that point on? Think about that. It's an interesting fact. So he gave him this book called Think and Grow Rich, and he said, if you will read this book and do exactly what it tells you, you can have anything you want. Now, there's a lot of people who have read that book, but they haven't actually got everything they want. And there's a real fundamental reason why, right? Because it's not just about reading. It's about studying what's been written in that book and then applying it and taking action. Now, Bob's income took off like a rocket. He was in the fire department in Toronto at the time. He then opened cleaning offices. He started cleaning floors in offices just to earn some extra money. And his income went from $4,000 to $175,000 in the first year. And then it went over $1 million, and he opened cleaning offices. And this was in a span of 4 years. He opened cleaning offices in Toronto, in Boston, in Atlanta, in Montreal, in London, England, in Fulham. And his whole life changed. And he couldn't really figure out what happened to him. So he began to study. He made up his mind that he was going to learn what happened to him. Now, most people don't really want to be wealthy. All right, that's something that Bob has found. I mean, real wealth. This is what I'm talking about. Like, we read of the lives of the rich and famous. And although it's interesting reading those kind of magazines, and, we think that it would be nice to have all the stuff that the rich and famous have, but that's not really the desire of most people. They don't want to be super, super wealthy. Okay. What the desire is that they can be free of any financial concerns. That's what most people want. And I can relate to that. And I think you guys listening to my podcast can relate to that as well. Like, they don't want to wonder, can they afford to change their car? Can they afford to take a holiday? Can they afford to pick up a new dress or a new suit if they wanted? They want to be free of any financial concern. No debt, always a few £1,000s to do what they want to do. Now, this is one thing people all over the world want. It doesn't matter what race you are, what sex you are, what religion you follow, right? This is what most people all over the world want. The second thing that people want is to wake up every morning enthused about how they're going to spend their day. And you've got to admit, that would be a pretty good way, wouldn't it, to spend your day, right? Now, I want you to think about that for a moment. Not a lot of people wake up enthused and excited about how they're going to spend their day. Do you wake up excited about your day? Now, a lot of research has been done on that by some pretty strong authorities. And what they've found is that about 80% of the people do not like what they're doing. They don't like their jobs. They're in jobs that they absolutely hate. And that's a large group of people. 80% of the people don't like what they're doing in any city, in any country in the world. The motorways are jammed in the morning and every night. Some people spend an hour, 2 hours going to and fro work, an hour, 2 hours coming home from work. And, then they're working on something that they don't really, really like. So when you really dig into what do people want, they want to wake up in the morning and know that they're going to do what they love doing all day long, right? That's the second thing that most people want. Now, the third thing that we have found that almost everybody wants is that they want to enjoy relationships with other men and women, other people who are upbeat, enthusiastic, and creatively productive. How many of you can relate to those three things? It's kind of a nice idea, isn't it? So you've got no financial concerns. You spend your days doing what you love to do, whatever that might be for you. And you mix with upbeat people. As strange as it may seem, there's not a lot of people that fall into those three areas. There's only 3% of the world's population that actually fall into those three areas. And yet, anyone can. Anyone can have those three things. No financial concerns, spend your days doing what you love, and mix with people who are upbeat and enthusiastic. And what I'm going to talk to you about is a process which I teach to my clients. They're working with myself, and it's Procter Gallagher Institute that's put it together. And it's been accepted all over the world, not just with individuals like you, but in big, big corporations. And I guarantee you that you can live that way. Now, how many of you would like to live that way? I think we would all like to live that way. And you know what? You can. Along with other success stories that I can share with you, that I have, you can live that way. Now, it was Bob Proctor who did that research, and he has travelled all over the world now for the last 58 years. And he talks to people everywhere he goes, and that's pretty much what it boils down to. And that's something that I found also. I speak to clients every day, and I have found that most of them don't want to be really, really wealthy. First of all, they don't even want the great responsibility of great wealth. They just don't want to have any financial concerns. They don't want, they want to love how they spend their days, and they want to mix with upbeat people. And that is not a large demand from life. Now, we should all be able to pull that off, I think. And the truth is, you can pull that off. You really can. And I'm here to tell you how. See, first of all, you can create your own economy. You're probably thinking I've lost the plot here, but you can create your own economy. Now, that might sound a little strange, but stay with me on this. You can literally create your own economy. You and I have been blessed with intellectual, mental faculties that go beyond the scope of our imagination. You probably don't even know what they are. Now, some of this stuff that you may have read about, that I'm talking about, you may have read about in books. You may have heard it. Some of you see it. You see it in self-help books, but it's putting it to work. It's internalizing it. It's taking action. And when you do that, good things start to happen. And that's when you start to live the good life. And I go deeply with this in the process I teach. In fact, we have a whole module on it in what I teach my clients who come to me. See, everyone wants freedom. And the 3 points I touched on today was freedom. That's what they want. Everyone wants freedom. We want time and money freedom. Most people don't have time freedom, and they don't have money freedom, right? Most people have got the money, but they haven't got the time to enjoy it. And most people have got the time, but they haven't got the money. And you'd be amazed about how much free time you'll have when you never have to think about money. If you have a shortage of money, if you have money problems, an enormous amount of time is spent thinking about how can you do this and pay that card and that bill. But when you don't have to think about that, the money's there. You can look after it. You have a lot of free time. Now, if you have a lot of free time, how do you want to spend your days? That's my next question. Because it's all a choice. We don't have to do anything. We choose to do everything. And when I first heard that, When I heard Bob say that to me, that really got me thinking, we don't have to do anything. We choose to do everything. Now, this is a pretty good concept. I want you to think about results for a moment in your own life. Mentally think, what's the most you've ever earned in a year? And I want you to think about your work, how you spend your days. I also want you to think about 4 or 5 people you spend a lot of time with. And then ask yourself, did you meet the criteria I just laid down there? Those 3 things that I just mentioned. Think of your results. Then we want to ask ourselves, how do results happen? How do they happen? Do results just happen in our lives? I don't think you think results just happen, do they? But if you analyze most people's behavior, they operate as if results just happen. And I know, and I'm not ashamed of admitting this, but I know I did for a long time until I got involved in this process and this information that I'm sharing with you. I don't know if I gave any serious thought on the results in my life before the last 5 years. I just dealt with them as I became aware of them. I just dealt with them. Do results just happen? I don't think so. In fact, I know so. Results don't just happen. Now, let's talk about results and how they do happen. And as I go through this with you, I want you to think about your own results in any area of your life that you're not happy with. And I said earlier that this whole podcast is about money and your mind. So I want you to think of what you're earning. Okay, think of your income. Think of how you spend your days. Not just your weekends, Monday to Friday. How do you spend your days? And think of the people that you spend most of your time with. And I want you to all start focusing in these areas. Ask yourself, how did this happen? How did I start working at this? How did I settle for this income? Did I in fact settle? For those of you who want to earn more, but you just can't seem to kind of go past a certain amount or can't figure out how did I settle for this income? Did I in fact settle? And then ask yourself, did I decide that this is what I will earn? Or did somebody else decide? And finally, I want you to think about, have I just mixed with these people that I mix with for so long that it's just taken for granted that's who I mix with? And how about how I spend my days? If I could sit down and write out how I would like to work and spend my days, would I be doing what I'm doing? You see, if we take a close look at that, sometimes the answers aren't that positive. Now I'm going to ask you a question. There's 2 things that you must know to create great results in life. Do you know what they are? Think about that. Well, first, you have to know where you are. That is really, really important. Where are you in life? Where are you in your career? Where are you in your business? Where are you in your relationships? Where are you in your health? And second, you have to know, where are you going? And then you've got to get going in that direction. Now, that is so basic and so simple, and it's so obvious. You're thinking, Alpa, you just stated the obvious. Well, you'd have to ask yourself then, why are so many people stuck? If that's so obvious, why are so many people stuck in jobs that they hate, stuck in dead-end jobs, stuck in relationships that they don't want to be in, stuck in that mental rut that they're always in? Why is that? Why is it that they keep attracting problems after problems after problems? If it's simply a matter of deciding where you are, so if I look at my income, I take a look at my income, how I spend my days, the people that I mix with, and then I take a look at where I'd really, really like to be. Why is it so difficult? A lot of people will tell you the problems with the goals. And for a long time, that's what I thought it was. But the problem is really where we are in life right now. Because you see, the problem is, and I've spoken about this in my last podcast, the problem is paradigms. Now, in my last podcast, I explained about paradigms, and I also gave you 3 steps to shift them. But I'd like to go a bit deeper today, because those who don't know what paradigms are, or you still haven't understood what they are, you have no idea how it's impacting your life. You see, that is something that we learn very little about. We go all the way through school, college, university, our entire educational system, and we gather all kinds of different information, but we don't do what we've been taught. We don't do what we know how to do. The cause of the problem is right there. Paradigms. I could ask you, what's the most you've ever earned in a year? And your income is, and when you tell me, I'll know a lot about where your paradigm is around money, where your wealth consciousness is. Do you know that there's a part of your mind that controls your income? You think it's people you work for. You think it's the company, the people you work with. That's the obvious answer. But the real answer's inside your head, your paradigms. The people you associate with, it's the paradigm. See, the paradigm controls our life. Now, I'm sure most of you who are listening to this podcast, you might have seen the movie The Secret. Okay, the documentary is spread all over the world. Bob was one of the main stars of the film, and The Secret left people with the idea that all you have to do is want something. And as he points out, that's not true. You can want it, but if the paradigm, and listen to what I've got to say here, if the paradigm is not in harmony with what you want, you're not going to get it. Probably the most important word in any language is right there, paradigm. And as you start to understand that, you start to understand how to change your life. Once you start to understand your paradigm, that's when things will start changing for you. So how many of you think of things that you'd really like to have, do or be, and seem out of your reach right now? I think most of you would. Now let's think about this for a moment. Paradigm. Paradigm, as I explained in the last podcast, is a mental program that has almost exclusive control over our habitual behavior, and almost all of our behavior is habitual. Now, I want you to really think about this. It's a mental program that has almost exclusive control over our habitual behavior, and almost all of our behavior is habitual. So if you stop and think, there's a routine from the time you open your eyes in the morning until you close them at night. And if you live with someone, you could sit down and write out what their routine is when they wake up. And if you're wise, you won't screw around with their routine, okay? People just automatically wake up and they follow a pattern. You do the same. And that pattern leads them right through life. And you know what we found? Just like that, you can change that pattern. And that's what I help people who work with me do. It took Bob 9.5 years to figure out what had happened to him. When his results changed so dramatically, he took his income from $4,000 to $175,000 in a year. And then 4 years later to $1 million. He had no formal education, no business experience. And when he followed the direction of his mentors, his life transformed. Now, most of us have been raised that if you're going to earn a lot of money, you've got to be really, really smart. I know I was. How many of you have been raised with that belief? If you've got to do well in business, you've got to have a good formal education, right? How many of you bought that idea as well? Almost everybody did. But you see, I've only been to college. I did an HND in business and finance. I got bored with that. And then I did an HND in media studies. I failed my GCSE in maths. I spoke about that in my last podcast. Not once, but twice I failed. Second time around, I got a grade D and I never resat the exam again after that. I went on to do a master's in TV and radio journalism as a mature student. And this was back in 2001. I didn't fully complete that master's as well. I've got part of the master's credit, but not the full one. And, now I understand, after studying this material, this information that I'm sharing with you, what had happened to me and, why I used to start new things and never finish them. Yeah, it was because of my paradigms. I didn't have any real desire. I didn't particularly like going to school or college. I only went to university because I thought I had to get a degree because my brother and my sisters had one. I had to be in the same league as them, or else, I'd be seen as the failure of the family, the stupid one who can't even get a grade C or above in maths. But, I've set up my successful coaching business since then. I have my own coaching company. I've been presenting on local BBC, national BBC and commercial radio for 25 years. I've increased my income, right? I've doubled it in 2 years, more than doubled it. How did I do that? Changing my paradigms. That's how. Understanding how the mind operates. That's how. Investing in a mentor. That's how. And of course, learning from someone who can demonstrate by results how to achieve anything you put your mind to and become very, very successful at it. Now, the process that I coach has been put together by Bob and his business partner, Sandy Gallagher. Now, she's been his business partner since 2006, I believe, and her background is actually in law. She was the #1 banking lawyer in all of America. She graduated from the top universities, London School of Economics. She had her own law firm, and she used to deal with billions of dollars of acquisitions and mergers of banks every day. And she really was living the high life, right? She attended one of Bob's seminars, and she said in all of the education that she has ever had, she has never ever heard of what he was teaching. And she made up her mind that she was going to learn what he was teaching and be in his business with him. And now she is, as of 2006, she is the CEO of his company. She closed down her law firm. As of 2006, she is the CEO of his company. And she's the one who's created this process that I'm talking to you about that changes paradigms and what I teach and facilitate to the clients that I work with. So what are paradigms? And as I've explained before, paradigms, they merely are a multitude of habits, but get this, they are other people's habits that have been passed on from one generation to the next. And, do you have any idea, the number of things that you do because your mom or your dad or your grandparents did them? Do you know almost all of our beliefs, someone else originated? Most of your beliefs aren't even your own. Now, I want you to think about this. We can go through almost all of our educational system and never ever be taught how to make decisions. I talk to people all the time and they find it really, really difficult to make the decision. Kids are not taught how to make decisions. And as a result, as they get older in their adult life, they are constantly saying, what do you think I should do? What do you think I should do? And they're asking somebody that possibly doesn't even think. There's a great quote by Earl Nightingale, a very famous American radio broadcaster, the co-founder of the personal development industry. He said, if most people were thinking, they would be speechless. And you know something? I happen to agree with him. If you listen to what most people are saying, it's fairly obvious they're not thinking because they would never say what they're saying. Stand back objectively and watch what people are doing. They would never do what they were doing if they were thinking. So I want you to run that around your mind a little bit. Financial success has a lot to do with being at the right place at the right time. That's what most people think. But you know something? We are all in the right place at the right time. Many, many times in our life. But we don't make it. Why? Because we are not aware that we are in the right place at the right time. It's awareness that's missing. Now I'm going to go through an exercise with you here, and your ability to enjoy the good life is really dependent on your level of awareness, right? If you take a little dot, and let's represent that dot as you, and it's a really teeny tiny dot, okay? That's your level of awareness. Now, you may not spend a lot of time talking about conscious awareness, but I just want you to stay with me in this podcast and it will make a lot of sense to you. So this little teeny tiny dot that I want you to imagine is your level of awareness, okay? Consider how your life would change if it just expanded to 1 degree. How much would your life change if it expanded by 1%? The change would be absolutely astronomical. That's what I did in 2014. I didn't go back to uni. I didn't become really, really smart. And I want you to think of some people that you know who are absolutely brilliant but they're broke. And I want you to think of some other people who are very, very wealthy, but they're not very bright. See, we operate on a premise that it's intellect. It's not intellect, it's awareness. You know, think of this for a second. You know, I know you're a woman who's listening to this. I also know that you might be a man who's listening to this right now, right? And you're thinking, Alpa, she's stating the obvious here. Well, I'm aware of the difference between male and female. So are you, okay? If you hear a female voice, you're aware it's a woman speaking to you. If you hear a male voice, you're aware that it's a man speaking to you. And you may be thinking, Alpa, everybody's aware of that. That's not true. That's not true. Little babies are not aware of that. A baby must become aware of the difference in gender. And you know what our problem is? At a very early age, we stop developing awareness and we start focusing all of our conscious attention on the intellect, and the intellect becomes the king. Get another degree. You know, we've got people leaving universities. They have degrees coming off the end of their business cards and they're not making it happen. You know why? They lack the awareness, right? I want you to listen to what I've got to say. I want you to think about this for a moment. This is a very, very important subject. What we want to do is eliminate the darkness, right? And to do that, you turn on the light. Okay, we all know that. If you want to get rid of the darkness, you switch on the light. Well, that's what you've got to do with your awareness. I'll give you an example. A person doesn't earn £100,000 a year because they want to earn £100,000 a year. They earn £100,000 a year because they don't know how to earn £100,000 a month. Yeah? So the trick is to continually develop our level of awareness. And the question then becomes, how do I raise my awareness? Right? Here's my answer to you. And it's an answer that we really want to burn into our mind. It's through effective education combined with professional coaching over a reasonable period of time, which will expand a person's level of awareness and improve the quality of their life. You're earning what you're earning, whatever that might be, because that's where your level of awareness will take you. Okay? If you knew how to earn more than that, you'd already be doing it. How many of you would like to expand your level of awareness just with the respect of earning money? Yeah, I'm sure there's so many of you that want to do that. You're shouting at the podcast right now. You're shouting at your smartphone right now, or whatever you're listening to me on. How many would like to expand your level of awareness to growing your business if you're in business? Right? You see, it's all about awareness. I'll give you an example. You see, one person, right? Let's take this example. One person, you'll see that they're doing very, very well. They could be in the sales department of a company. Let's take this example, right? Or think about, imagine yourself and imagine another person who's working in the same department of the company that you're working for, right? Take two people, they're working for the same sales manager, selling the same product or service in the same marketplace. They've had the same training, and yet one's doing extremely well and the other's struggling. How come? It's awareness. They're both getting the same training, right? But one's struggling. And you see, we have a system that will help you continually expand your level of awareness. As you get involved in this system, your whole life starts to change. Okay? You know, they say it's a sad thing when you see a child that's afraid of the dark. But I'll tell you something that's an awful lot sadder, is when you see an adult that's afraid of the light. Let there be light is what I say. Let there be a higher degree of consciousness, because that's what we are really, really after. We have to be aware. There's something inside of you that wants you to keep growing. And that's what we are. Humans are here for growth and expansion. That's why we have goals in life. They're for us to stretch. This is powerful, powerful information that I'm sharing with you, right? And I'm going to touch on something that has to do with money, because this whole podcast is about money and your mind, right? Multiple sources of income, or MSIs. You've probably heard Bob speak about that if you've heard Bob's seminars or attended them before. There are only 3 income earning strategies. There's just 3. And this is something everyone should know, but no school teaches this. They're called M1, M2 and M3. Now, if you're going to teach your children anything about earning money, take my advice, you want to teach them the M3 strategy. And if you don't teach them, the odds of them learning are pretty slim, because school does not teach us how to earn money, and for a good reason. The teachers don't know how to earn money. And that's no disrespect to any teacher that's listening right now. But the best teachers in the school could be the lowest paid. And the worst teachers in school could be the highest paid. The system is broken. And I think we all know that, right? So we've got people graduating from universities. They can't find work in the subject they've studied. And they are up to their neck in debt for loans that they took out to pay for the education they got and a job they couldn't find. That is our situation at the moment. We think education is putting more information in. That's not education at all. The word education actually comes from the Latin word educo. Did you know that? What does that mean? It means to educe, to develop, or to draw out from within. That's what our process does. That's what, when people come to me, that's what I teach them. It's absolutely incredible. Now, let's talk about money, because we've spoken a lot about the mind, but I'm going to go through 3 strategies about money and multiple streams of income. You see, 96% of the population work with the M1 strategy, and it's the one we are taught. Okay, we are taught at home from our parents, and we are taught in school, and that's where you trade your time for money. And 96% of us are in that bracket. So you'll get so much an hour, or you'll get a weekly wage, right? Now think, that's a strategy that won't work. Okay? Yet 96% of the population are following it. And so was I up until a couple of years ago. I used to work, actually it was 5 years ago, I used to work in a call centre as well as being a radio presenter. I've shared this story with you. So I was holding down 2 jobs, right? I worked for British Telecom for 14 years. I joined the company in October 1999 thinking I'll be there for about 2 years and I'll move on. But I didn't. I was stuck there for about 14 years doing a job I absolutely hated, but I did it because I got complacent. I got comfortable. But being comfortable is the worst place to be. When you're comfortable, you're actually stuck. And that's what I was. I was stuck, a hamster on a wheel, right? I was on quite a high paid job. I thought that was good money. And if I left, where would I find a job that would pay me that much money for just sitting on my bum all day long talking to customers? That was my mental mindset, that if I left, that's why I couldn't leave the job, because I thought nobody's going to pay me that much to sit here and talk to people. I feared leaving it. I'd entertained the idea numerous times, but the inside mind chatter, my paradigms kept saying to me, Alpa, how will you pay for your financial commitments? Fear. It was fear, and my paradigms holding me back. I was programmed to think that way. We are all told to save money, and that's part of our programming. We are told to save money. We'll swirl a little bit away from the little income that we are earning at the expense of a life. That's what we're taught. You never drive the car you really want. You don't live in the house you really want. You don't take the holidays you want, because we have to save our money for that rainy day, right? This is a losing strategy, and it's an inherent problem, and it's called saturation. It won't work. Now, if you're following that strategy, don't feel bad, but start to feel really, really excited, because you can change it, and you can change it in no time. And that's what Bob did. That's what I've done, and numerous other clients of mine that I work with have done. Okay? Now, that's the M1 strategy. What's the M2 strategy? Well, the M2 is an excellent strategy, but it's only used by a very small population, and for a very good reason. It's just used by 3%, and that's because we invest money to earn money. Okay? Some of you are probably doing this. Now, the strategy that I'm going to talk about now, which is the M3 strategy, this is a strategy that Bob just stumbled upon in the early 60s. And then, of course, Sandy Gallagher, she kind of stumbled upon, but she never learnt it until 2006. Although she had handled billions of dollars in business and mergers and acquisitions, This is the strategy that she learnt, and it's a strategy that we're now teaching. It's only used by 1% of the population. Now, we think it's out of balance. It's really not out of balance, okay? It's governed by law. And I'm not talking about man-made law here. I'm talking about universal law. It's governed by the same law that governs the growth of your garden, right? It's about multiplying your time by setting up multiple sources of income. Now, you might be thinking, what does she mean by that? What's all that about? Well, let me go a little bit deeper with this. We can show you how to turn your annual income into a monthly income, right? All wealthy people have set up multiple sources of income, and the most wealthy people are never seen working. They're always out on their boats or yachts or soaking up the sun on a nice island. And we've grown up with the idea that in order to earn money, you have to be working hard. Working happens to be the very worst way of earning money. Okay? Now stay with me. The company that I used to work for, BT Openreach, which is a subsidiary company. Openreach is a subsidiary company of BT. As I say, whom I used to work for, have been told to close down their offices by the regulators Ofcom because of complaints of unfair competition. Okay, this was a year or so ago, a couple of years ago actually, that I read that information. Now that's thousands of staff who will lose their jobs or be rehoused in a department they may not even want to work for. And this is happening today. We're hearing of stores all over closing, right? We get taught that having a job is job security. We get taught that at a very young age, don't we? Let me tell you, there's no such thing as job security. Because when a company is forced to close or goes bankrupt, hear me out, their best interests are not their employees, unfortunately. You come way down the list. Their best interest is to get a new buyer. Their best interest is to clear off their creditors and try and get a healthy packet for the senior directors, etc. Okay? It's an illusion, a belief, it's a conditioning in the way we think and have been taught to think at a very, very young age. See, you go to work for satisfaction. That's why it's important that you have to love how you spend your days. If you're doing what you don't like, you get very little satisfaction out of how you spend your days. And you got to remember that life is short. Life is very beautiful, but it's very, very short, right? Remember at the beginning of this podcast, I said, we're talking about results that stick. That's what my company does. That's what Procter Gallagher Institute believes in. That's what we teach. You set up what is called an MSI. Most of us are unconscious competence. We don't know why we are good or effective than others. We just are, right? Most people who are very, very highly successful are also unconscious competence. They're not aware of why they are doing so well. If they were to tell you what their strategy was, they would not be able to explain it to you. You'll find managers and people who won't know why one of their staff is more effective than the other. What they don't understand is it's all to do with paradigms. So MSIs, you can set up all over the world, anywhere you want. And you probably are thinking, how do I do this? You become aware of it by mixing with people that are already doing it. You see, with the process we've got, we set up Facebook groups. The people that get involved in the process that we have, they get together and they mastermind with each other. Think of how exciting that would be if you were mixing with these ideas and working with these ideas. It could be transformable, couldn't it? Well, it is. And you could just keep adding sources of income. There is no end to what you can do. Now, this may sound preposterous and you may think, I wish I could learn how to do it right now. Well, you can, but it takes a little time. You didn't learn how to drive a car overnight, did you? Right? We had to learn how to walk, how to put on makeup. That's for women and men. Some men wear makeup. But you had to learn it. You had to learn how to get dressed. A little kid that's learning how to get dressed at the beginning, they put their pants up on their head and they think that's quite funny. They have to become aware of how to get dressed, right? You have to become aware of how to set up multiple sources of income. Now, they don't have to be all at the same size as well. Some of them may not work and die, but the other ones will keep going. Some of them will be big and some of them will be small, but they all have one thing in common, that they all flow into one bank account. And that's pretty appealing, isn't it? Right? And I'm sure you'd all like to have that. Well, what you've got to understand is that it can come from all over the world. Your bank will accept any currency and change it for you. And that's pretty cool. See, Napoleon Hill said that when riches begin to come, they come so quickly in great abundance that one wonders where they've been hiding during all those lean years. It's true, and it's a beautiful concept. So here's something you want to remember. Do just once what others say you can't do, and you'll never pay attention to their limitations again. I love that quote. And I'm going to say it again. Do just once what others say you can't do, and you'll never, ever pay attention to their limitations again. All you have to do is just stop and think. How did we get in the air? Do you know for centuries we had been trying to fly, right? 2 young bicycle mechanics from America introduced us to this new kingdom of flight. You know, have you any idea what their neighbours would have thought of them? They must have thought they were out of their mind, right? What about Thomas Edison, who invented that incandescent light in his basement? His own wife probably thought that he had lost it by the way he failed 10,000 times before he succeeded. You know, all breakthroughs have been made by people who think a little different. And that's what you have to do if you want to be living a certain lifestyle different from other people's. If you want to make a breakthrough in your life, you've got to think a little different, right? Now, you know, if you want to be a little more comfortable in the way you travel, you'll invest thousands of pounds in a car, and you'll probably invest in a car that you don't even need because you already have one, right? But we're conditioned to trade our car in. We're conditioned to get a new one. You know, we're conditioned to get a bigger car, get a better car. But are you conditioned to take part on your hard-earned money and invest in yourself? Right? So that you can become aware of how to create more income, a better income, or to multiply your income? Probably not. We're not conditioned that way. See, when I suggest to you to do something like that, something inside of you will say, don't do it. Yeah? You know, Einstein said that everything is energy. All right? And it's so true. You know, if you really take a look at yourself, you are a mass of energy and you function on a high frequency, right? If you put your hand out, take your hand out right now, look at your hand for a minute. Doesn't really matter, right hand or left hand. Now, from where your hand starts to the end of your fingers, do you know that there's enough potential energy in your one hand to light up an entire building for nearly a week? There's approximately 11 million kilowatt hours per pound of potential energy locked up in the electrons and the atoms of your body. Bet you didn't know that. I didn't know all of this until I started studying this information. If you put your body in front of an infrared vision camera in a completely dark room, you will see it as a glistening, radiating, gleaming form. It's absolutely phenomenal. Now, you can feel another person's energy as well. And as the images change in a person's mind, the energy will change. You know, you could be with somebody and all of a sudden you feel their mood changes, just like that. How do you know these things? Because you become aware of them. We all have the potential. You have the potential to develop your ability. Nobody's born with it. You develop the ability. Big difference. Your potential is astronomical. Nobody can guess at, not even the wildest scientists can guess at what your potential is, right? It's all about your mind. It's all about what you think you can achieve and what you believe is possible for you. And that is such a beautiful concept. Now, this whole podcast is about money and your mind, and I've spoken a fair bit about money. So I want to turn our attention onto our mind, and let's look at your mind and your paradigms. Now, the problem is that the mind is an activity. Mind is not a thing, okay? If there's a problem in the body, it originates in the mind, okay? But how do you treat the mind? If you don't know how something looks like, how can you treat it? And if you remember my last podcast, I spoke to you about a doctor by the name of Thurman Fleet who created a picture of the mind. So let's go back to that image that I want you to imagine of the mind, okay? For those of you who don't know what the mind looks like, because you may not have been fortunate to know of any of our information that we teach at Mind Matrix Coaching or at Proctor Gallagher Institute, there was a doctor by the name of Dr. Thurman Fleet, and he created a picture of the mind. As I say, he was a doctor of the healing arts, and he used to help people, recreating people's images or faces, and nowadays we know them as cosmetic surgeons, okay? So he drew a picture, and what he drew was, he drew a big circle which represented the mind, and he put a horizontal line in that circle in the middle. And so you've got the top half of the mind, which is your conscious mind. You've got the bottom half of your mind, which is your subconscious mind. And he also attached a body to it, a little body. Okay, and then he put some arms and legs on it. So in effect, it looks like a stick person. All right. Now, Bob has been studying this image every day since 1961. And he will tell you in a heartbeat that it's the most powerful idea that he has ever learnt. And I'm going to tell you as well, if you get involved in this process that we teach, if you become aware enough to invest in yourself, you're going to realise that this drawing that I've asked you to imagine right now is probably the most important thing that you'll ever look at. Okay, so let's think about this. School gave us valuable knowledge. We've all been to school. We've been fortunate to go to school, okay? It's given us valuable knowledge. However, school never taught us how to alter the old paradigms, the old way of thinking, the habitual behaviour and the beliefs that we've had. Therefore, we frequently don't do what we already know how to do, okay? So school, what did school give us? It gave us a land full of information, right? And they want to know how much you've got. So when schools test you, whether that's school, colleges or universities, right? School gets us to land the information in our conscious mind, which is our educated mind. And they want to know how much you've got, so they give you tests. And if you can remember what they give you, you'll pass the tests. But isn't it strange? People leave school with all kinds of information, and the results would indicate they don't have any information, right? You could leave school with all your GCSEs, but later on in life, you're not doing anything with that knowledge that you've gathered. You could leave university with a degree in economics, but not know how to earn money. You see, the paradigm is in this part of the mind, in your subconscious mind, and that's what causes the result. And if you're going to change your results, you're going to have to change your programming, your paradigm. How many of you have been trying to change your results? You've been trying to change your life, your income. You'll change nothing permanently until you change your paradigm. That is the conditioning. You've got to get to the root cause of the problem. So here's another question. Why do you think you look so much like your relatives? It's because of the programming. You know, we're programmed genetically, right? And we know today that 50% of our DNA comes from our mother, 50% comes from our father. And we know that 50% of our mother's DNA comes from her mother and 50% comes from her father, right? And the same on your dad's side. And it boils down to your DNA, which has been passed down from generations after generations. That's why you look like your relatives. The DNA is the programming. Can you change it is the question. Yes, you can is the answer. You can change anything. You just have to become aware of how to change it. Now, I hope you found this information to be valuable so far. And if you agree for it to be valuable, you'll continue to listen to this podcast, right? And you haven't really learnt that much, but you do know that what I'm telling you is accurate, because I'm not telling you something that's rocket science. I'm explaining things about our life that causes our life to be the way it is now, and then learn how to change it. It's so easy to do this, but you've got to be aware of it. And if you have a sincere desire to change your results that you're not happy with in your life, I've got the process that will show you how to do it. Getting what you want out of life is really a game of minds, which is why I've titled my podcast with the subheadline Game of Minds, because you've got to understand the mind. It really is a mind game, right? Now, most people think You've got to be a psychologist, a behavioral scientist, or a psychiatrist to be able to understand the mind. And that's not true. It's not true. You know, I had a client who was a doctor who works in a hospital. He's also a musician, and he had no idea what the mind looked like. And he was amazed by this information, and he's transformed his life now to an even higher level. We teach children how to understand the mind. Anyone that understands this, they start to change their mind, and voila, they change their results. One of my youngest clients ever that I worked with, he was only 17 years old, and he learned so much from this information. He was from East London, and he had big dreams. And I tell you, if I knew about this information when I was 17 years old, I would have been at an even bigger stage of my life than I am currently at. This client of mine, he had the right idea to start very, very young. If I could show you how to change every aspect of your life by understanding your mind, I'm sure you would invest the time that's required for you to do this, for improving your life, improving your mindset, and improving your health, improving your business, your relationships, whatever it might mean for you. The question that I ask people when they come to me was, when was the last time you invested in a mentor? When was the last time you invested in yourself? When was the last time you invested in upgrading your internal programming? Because that's what's required. If you want that shift, if you want the quantum leap that you want in your life, when was the last time you gave your mind a workout? We're all so body conscious, aren't we? We love going to a gym, most of us, and we'll pay so much on fitness and gym memberships, where, we have the time, some of us don't even have the time to go to the gym, yet we'll still pay the membership. It's just so cool to say in passing conversation with our friends, oh, I'm a member of a gym. And it's great, if you go and give your body a workout. But just like our bodies needs the training, our minds needs the training too, right? So my point is, you must learn to understand the mind and decide to learn and live the good life. And you must be able to feed it the food and the fuel that it requires for it to be healthy and for it to think the thoughts that it needs to think. Now, most people, they set A-type goals, which are things they already know how to do. And that's the other big part of the problem, which is why people don't achieve what they want to achieve. And if they go beyond that, they set B-type goals, which is something they think they can do. We've got to stretch. We've got to get up there. We've got to get up where the air is a little thin. C-type goals are the goals that I work with the clients that I work with. We teach you how to go after your dreams, what you really, really want to do, be or have. You don't have to know the how, right? That's not important, but you only have to know that you're going to do it. You only have to know what you want. See, once you understand the creative process, and it really is a creative process, there's a science behind this, you'll understand what kept the Wright brothers going. They didn't know how to get into the air until they got into the air, right? Edmund Hillary didn't know how to get to the top of Mount Everest until he got there. And it took him 3 attempts before he even got there. I can talk about my home city, Leicester City FC. They didn't know how to be top of the Premiership until after they won it. I don't know where they are right now, but I'm talking about when they won it. It was massive news all over the world. Nobody would have thought in their right mind that Leicester City FC would hit the top of the Premiership, right? This process that I coach will help educate you on how to get it. To be able to shape your future, you have to be able and willing to change your paradigm. That is a must, right? And I love a quote by Steve Jobs, the founder of Apple. Just before he passed away, he said, just as I was reading that, I thought, if I knew today was the last day, was my last day, would I do what I'm doing? And I can hand on my heart say, hell yes, this is exactly what I want to do. I love what I do. I love helping people shift their paradigms and helping them get the results they want in their life. But ask yourself that question. If you knew today was your last day, would you do what you're doing? Right? What I'm doing is I'm helping people become aware of their true potential and what they are actually capable of doing. And then I'm helping them do it. Right? And I won't give that up for anything. Now, I can't do it for them, But you can do it for you. You can't do it for your kids. The kids have to do it for themselves. But you can show them how their mind functions so that they can go on to live a better life than you and I. And you have to build a new model for your life, okay? So if you want to learn how to make those changes in your life, how to achieve the goals and results that you want in your life, why don't you drop me an email, alpa@mindmatrix.com. I'd love to hear from you. And that's it from me. I hope you've enjoyed what I've had to share. And you know what? You just need to make a decision and believe in yourself and your dream and invest in somebody, a mentor or coach who can show you how it's achieved. And ask yourself, how badly do you want to change your life? Right? How serious and committed are you? Because life is not a practice run. We get one shot. You know, are you interested in achieving great results in your life, or are you committed? There's a big difference between interested and being committed. If you're interested, you'll use your old stories and your old references and old excuses, and you will just do what's convenient. You'll find excuses. I have no time, don't have money, or it's not right for me right now. Being committed is what's required, which means doing whatever it takes, which is what I did, right? So there you have it. I hope you've enjoyed it. As I say, you know, this process will literally change your life, right? If you invest your time in having a conversation with me, I'd love to share more with you. Now, this is what I suggest you do. If you want to sit down and you're serious right now and you want to have a conversation with me, then let's have a conversation. Get in touch with me. alpa@mindmatrix.com is my email address. My website address is mindmatrix.com. You can contact me through that. And you know what? I'd love to have a chat with you. You know, just let me know what's the best time to give you a call. We can have a chat and I'll show you how, using the information that I'm sharing with you, I've merely just touched on. If you think that's a lot of information, it was just like a skin on an onion. It really was. I'll show you how to peel the whole onion, and, you know, we'll have a conversation that really matters. And here's what you've really got to grasp, and you'll experience this. You know, your paradigm is telling you that she's trying to sell you something. And I'm really going to agree with your paradigm, because I am trying to sell you something. Selling is leading another person into a path of agreement. That's all that selling is. The paradigm does not want you to change. You've heard the old saying, old habits die hard. If you're sick and tired of living the way you are, knowing that you can do so much better, contact me. I'll love to talk to you. And, you know, we'll set up a meeting and we'll chat about how I can help you, how Bob can help you. It's not just me, it's myself and Bob Proctor who help you together to get you exactly what you want, and you can live the life you want. You know, I'm so grateful to my mentors, especially to Bob, who has personally mentored me, and he has spent his whole life studying this and packaging it so that, you know, his consultants can communicate this effectively to help people like you. You know, if you do this, you're going to become a part of a movement where people worldwide are waking up in numbers. This is going to be one of the most exciting things that you have ever got involved in, and you're going to be so grateful that you came to knowing this information, came to listening to my podcast, because I can guarantee some of you who are listening right now are thinking, I don't know if I should go for it or not. But you're here, you're listening to this, and you're going to be so glad that you have listened to it. You know, I want to thank each one of you for showing up and tuning into my podcasts and giving me the opportunity to share this information, because it's had such an enormous impact on my life and my clients' life. I'm happy, I'm healthy, I'm wealthier, not by accident. It's all by design. And that's the design that I'm sharing with you. You know, it's effectively delivered. Don't ask anybody else what they think you should do. This is one of the things you learn going to other people for their opinion, right? Follow the quiet voice within. Do exactly what you want to do, not what others think you should do, because you will never get freedom that way. The paradigm will try to talk you out of it because it's keeping you stuck where you are. You've got to change that. Now's the time to change it. So thank you again for listening to me. I'll be happy to speak to you, as I say. Get in touch with me and you'll hear from me very soon. Until next time, keep going. Thank you. This is Alpa Pandya.
The Alpa Pandya Show is brought to you by Mind Matrix Coaching, your quantum leap to success.